Hi everyone, Matt here from Digital Presence. In today's video, we are going to be answering your questions about the Google News Code Media debate. One of the most prominent questions that we had facing us here at Digital Presence was, should I start using Bing? To give you a very simple and concise answer, no, don't bother with using Bing at all. Simply put, Bing compared to Google does not possess enough of the market share to sufficiently pose a threat to Google's hold on the search engine product market in Australia. Based on StatCounter January 2020-2021 data, 89.3% of Australian search engine users use Google search engine product, whereas only a marginal 8.18% of search engine users use Bing. What this means is that a very small percentage of the total Australian population uses Bing search engine product, and as such, it would take a lot of investment and development from other companies to be able for the whole population to use Bing as a search engine platform in its widespread form. The other reason that you should not start using Bing is that what you may have seen in the media about Google threatening to discontinue its search engine product in Australia was merely a worst case scenario if the News Media Code bill was to be passed in its current form. As Google has cited in its open letter, which you're more than free to check online, as it was based on the current factors of mandating Google to share its algorithm changes to businesses involved, which would provide them with an unfair advantage to boost their organic search engine rankings. The invasive requirement for Google to inform news media businesses of what data is collected by them, and then also how news media outlets use that information. And then lastly, an unfair arbitration process which does not recognise Google's monetary contribution to the annual gross revenue of news media outlets. Another frequently asked question that we are facing at the moment is whether Google are properly compensating media companies for displaying their content on their search engine platform. In the words of Kerry Stokes, the Seven West Media chairman, the recent deal struck with Google is a great outcome for the company and Google. Mr. Stokes has further restated it recognises the value, credibility and trust of our leading news brands. As recently as the 17th of February of this month, the Nine Network has also reached a deal with Google for over 30 million Australian dollars, reportedly for the showing of news articles published on Google News Showcase and also Google Subscribe. In addition, the day after that, on the 18th of February, Rupert Murdoch's News Corp has reached a deal with Google regarding both the audio and the visual content, while also receiving ad revenue share from Google. So that now brings us to 3 out of the 3 major media outlets in Australia have reached agreements with Google, namely to relist them Seven West Media, the Nine Network and News Corp in Australia. So essentially what this all means is that with the 3 major news corporations in Australia having reached deals with Google, it signifies across the journalism and news media industry that Google recognises the importance of an equitable partnership for the republication of public interest journalism. Another great concern that has been raised by followers of this debate is, does the prospect of almost exclusively e-based journalism invite exclusion to information to minority audiences who are unable to afford technology access? From our point of view here at Digital Presence, absolutely. From our perspective, if society is becoming more reliant on technology, like any other socially valued resource such as education and healthcare, there will be inequality as persons from differing socioeconomic backgrounds will have different levels of access. This opinion is also backed by public interest research which we have also found. The exclusive Internet Index of 2020, powered by the Economist Intelligence Unit, has indicated that Australia is ranked 24th in the world regarding its readiness. Now, what the readiness means is its capacity to access the internet, including skills, cultural acceptance and supporting policy. To give you an indication where Australia is in the global rankings, countries such as the United Kingdom, Canada and New Zealand are all above in the top 20 ranking scale, demonstrating that Australia does have room for improvement regarding its citizens' level of accessibility to digital resources. Furthermore, the Australian Digital Inclusion Index in its latest submission in 2018, powered by Roy Morgan Research, has reaffirmed the stance that Australia was behind world standards in terms of digital inclusion. In an extract from the report found that the gaps between the digitally included and excluded Australians are substantial and that they are widening. People in low-income households have a higher digital inclusion score of 41.1 out of 100, which is 27 points lower than the higher-income households of 68.1, demonstrating that Australia has got a lot of work to do regarding its improving the accessibility of its citizens to digital resources. An interesting scenario that has been prompted by this debate is whether Google would ever consider leaving Australia, which would compromise its search and maps product. From our standpoint, it is highly unlikely that in this current environment, Google will withdraw its search engine product as well as its maps product from the Australasian market. Considering Google has reached commercial agreements with the three major Australian news media outlets, namely Seven West Media, the Nine Network and News Corp, in conjunction with the Morrison government offering to amend the media code legislation if Google could get the companies to sign with other news publication outlets for their new Showcase product, it is very likely that the entirety of Google services will remain in Australia. And just a fun fact for you, Google Maps is actually based in Australia, so considering their significant investment in the region, as well as Melanie Silvers, the Google Managing Director for Australia and New Zealand, repeated comment of leaving Australia would be the very worst case scenario. It is very likely that they will stay in Australia and retain the entirety of their product offerings to the Australian market.